There is a huge story breaking out of Washington, D.C. They're hoping you don't find out about it. They're trying to keep it quiet. It has to do with this new round of stimulus that's been promised since whenever last year. They are trying to make people believe that it's just too expensive and there's too much pork in there for Democrat wish lists and all that. Has nothing to do with it. What it has to do with is this. If they start issuing $1,400 checks, people will continue to refuse to go back to work and refuse to pay their bills because the moratoriums on evictions don't end until the end of March. It's not even the end of February. And there's a difference between thriving and surviving. I've used this meme before, but it is really, really important that those of you within the sound of my voice, those of you who follow me regularly, understand this. They don't want to, meaning the Democrats, the leftists, the liberals, the progressives, they don't want to go back to work. They don't want things to go back to normal. They have gotten used to the gravy train. See, when Trump left office, they lost their victim status. The last 4 years, and this is what identifies a leftist, is they always want to be a victim of something. Well, now Biden's in charge. The Democrats have the tie-breaking vote in the Senate and they control the House. You see, they can't be seen as victims unless they remain unemployed, remain under threat from COVID, and remain in a simple survival status. That is critical to them going forward. Now, I know a lot of you still think that we should hang on to what happened in the past. The past is the past. The future is all it's worth discussing. Acknowledging the good that we already have in our lives is the foundation for all abundance. Florida has been open since April. Truly open May, June, full bore. And the places that are thriving now are the places that have people who now have expendable income. Where do you think all of these businesses that closed are going to reopen? And I know many of you are also worried about DC HR 1, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Let me ask you a question. Does Washington, D.C. have a giant standing army of programmable robots to send into the states to enforce these things? Of course they don't. Some of you might say, well, they'll just use the police. Really? Who remembers last year? Who remembers last year when they were demonizing all police everywhere? Do you really think these guys on the right are going to be all too fired up, excited to start enforcing resolutions that are passed by people that not even a year ago wanted to see them all unemployed? Tell me another one. Tell me another one. You see, that's something else they don't want you to know. Whatever law, whatever thing the federal government does, they need the collusion of the authorities within the states to make it happen. Otherwise, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Pardon me, 1 second. It is allergy season down here in Florida, and there is this yellow dust all over everything, so if occasionally you hear me cough, don't think it's COVID or anything. It's just pollen season. Pine pollen is incredibly pervasive, and it gets everywhere. This is why we are seeing the left eat itself right now. Those in D.C., those in the rotunda, have more now to fear from their own party than they do from anyone on the right. We should just sit back and watch the collapse. Pop some popcorn. Case in point, huge electronic box store, primarily West Coast, blue state oriented Fry's Electronics, is now shutting down all their stores. Not even 2 years ago, they were talking about being excited for the new holiday season. I am so sorry. I apologize about that. This is a map of all their locations, primarily all West Coast, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, blue state area, Austin of Texas, Atlanta, of course, blue city, pardon me. And then, of course, in Chicago. All of their blue state locations and blue city locations are failing epically. And so are so many other businesses. What we're doing, it's only a month, is working, keeping Southern money in the South. Keeping Southern money in the South. And we don't even have to speak or reason as to why we're doing it. We can just say, we have a lot of state pride. We have a lot of desire to help our friends and neighbors. You don't even have to bring up anything anymore about what happened November, December, all this kind of stuff, because the truth on the ground is, factually speaking, conservatives are in control of the country, de facto. The vast majority of the governor's houses, I can speak specifically for Florida, our whole Supreme Court, our House, our legislature, our governor, and it's starting to tilt. And this happens, normally when one party takes the White House, the other party does better 2 years later. We're going to do a lot better than they're planning for us to. Simply by just saying no to blue state items, to items from New North Korea. Where is New North Korea? Simple. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, and all this up east. Or anything from the West Coast. It's just that easy. Vote with your money. Free enterprise. I'm going to reiterate this a lot going forward. It's going to be in probably a lot of my videos. It's going to be in a lot of my polls. Because guys, I'm telling you, you guys are doing an amazing job with this. It is working. The governor of Florida had mentioned hundreds of millions of dollars in more revenue than they thought they were going to have. And that's a month. And this is the story all across the South. Businesses cropping up. People hiring. Yesterday's video, I put a bunch of links to all the places that are hiring here in the South. Meanwhile, on the West Coast and up northeast, they are sitting on their hands waiting for another check from the government. It's completely the two opposite sides of the spectrum. DC has now been rendered functionally irrelevant and powerless. They can pass whatever law they want. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Let them pass this, pass that, pass the other. For it to have any teeth, they would need to have their own private robot army, wouldn't they? Well, they don't. And the people that they're requiring, or not requiring, or they are relying upon to enforce it, they just spent a year destroying. These guys have no interest in this party across the nation, but especially in the southern states. So whatever you might hear another channel report or tell you to be afraid, don't be afraid. DC, do not be afraid. They are now relegated to history. While technically in de jure, D-E space J-U-R-E, they are DC, the capital. Their ability to affect their will upon the states has never been lower. There has never been a time in our history when DC's ability to impose its will upon the states has been lower. And to me, that's the definition of abundance. When states can take back control. Indiana has a bill now before their state legislature that does away with the idea of having to go to the government to get a license to carry a handgun. They're thinking about abolishing the whole process of it. South Carolina just passed a law that effectively ends abortion in their states. And 28 states have 100 bills before their respective legislatures tightening voting. And that was reported by CNN. And that's just in the first month. Just in the first month. You couldn't have asked for a better gift. You truly could not have. For conservatives and conservative values across this country. Because the states are still sovereign. It doesn't matter what social media says. Doesn't matter. They can restrict this post or cancel that post or shadow ban this. It doesn't affect the states. This thing they did where they dismissed that lawsuit that all those states had against Pennsylvania, that was such gold. Because now the states can do whatever they want to. And look at what's happening. South Carolina, Indiana, Florida speaks for itself. The past is the past. The future is all that's worth discussing, and we have so many reasons to be hopeful right now, if you really look for them. People getting back to work, life getting back to normal. You see, there's a group of people out there that don't want that to be the case. And we know who they are. We know who they are. They just want their free stuff. They just want their free stuff, and if they don't get it, they're going to live in their tents in the park, on the sidewalk. And we have them. We have them because they don't want to work. So, anyway, I will leave it there, guys. I'll keep you updated with anything new. CPAC is going to get kicked off tomorrow, and if there's anything of note that comes out of it, of course, I'll cover it. But God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.